Hello everyone, welcome back to another Unity 2D tutorial. As you can see in our syllabus, this is the last week we're working with 2D, and also the final project prompt has just been uploaded. You can check that out in Canvas. But we got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and jump right in. I opened up the project that we've been working on the past 2 weeks. I wrote myself a little note here. These are all the things we're going to cover. So yeah, I'll try to be quick. I try not to upload, 20-minute videos, but sometimes it's necessary. Okay, so first things first, let's run our game to remember what we're working with. Okay. Yeah, did I make that a little too far? Or am I just bad? I'm just bad, okay. I think that could be a little better, so let's go ahead and actually upgrade the jump to like 15. I'll make that 7, and I'll increase the gravity scale to like 5. See what that's like. Okay, let's not do that. Let's actually adjust it in real time. How about 4? Let's increase the jump speed to maybe 20. Ooh, that's a little high. How about 17? That's pretty good. Okay. I'll keep it at 18. So this was 4. This is 18. Okay. Now I want my camera to actually follow the player so we can make our map a little bit bigger. So let's go ahead and do that. My main camera, I will just click, drag it onto the player, and now it'll be anchored to the player. But I want the player to be at the center of the screen, so all I have to do there is transform, reset. But now, if I were to look at this from a different perspective, I'd see that the camera is actually inside the player. So we need to move its Z coordinate back to a negative number, like a -1 works. Okay, and just like that, we're actually following the camera, or following the player. Perfect. And now, because of that, though, I can see the where our map sort of clips off there. So let's go ahead and take this opportunity to make our map a little more interesting. Okay, what am I doing? Grid, terrain. Let's grab the tile palette. I want to make all of them a little deeper. I'm going to go ahead and make a few more of these too. This. And that looks pretty good. Let's try it. It's at least a little bit more interesting, I'd say. Okay. Awesome. Now we still have a problem where we can fall all the way through, but we'll fix that in a minute. So we made the map a little better, followed the player. Let's add an obstacle in the form of spikes. So I didn't download a new sprite, and I didn't make one, so I figured we could actually use something built into Unity already, and that is 2D object, sprite, what was it? Oh, the diamond, right. Okay, back to the inspector. I'm going to zoom in here and actually, let's reset the transform. I'm going to adjust it to probably that. Looks good. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good size for a spike. And I'm actually going to want to hide this bottom half here, or whatever's beneath the terrain. And to do that, I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to add a sorting layer. And I'll call this just spike. And I'll make one for ground as well. Okay, terrain. Where's our sorting layer? It is ground. And you see spike already went behind it. But just to be sure, let's add spike. And you can actually, if I wanted to, in the sorting layer, I could change these around, but as you can see, it already works. Oh, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to reset this name here to spike. That looks pretty good. Before I make it a prefab, I'm going to actually add in a few more components. I could use a few different colliders here, actually. What I'm going to use is the edge collider in this case, because I think it works the best, at least here. What am I doing? Edit collider. I'm going to add a point, or actually I'm going to drag it there. What am I doing? Oh, there we go. You just click to add a new point. I'm going to make a little triangle here. Okay. There is our edge. I'm going to make it a little bit forgiving by excluding a few pixels on all sides. And actually, now that I'm remembering, this spike is actually multi-sided. So if I decide to move the spike or make top-down spikes or side spikes or something, I want, just for now, I'm going to add another layer here so I can, just like that. Okay, that's pretty good. And now I'm going to move it back to spike. There we go. And now, what else do I want? I think that's, oh, I want a tag. And I'm going to call it spike. Surprise, surprise. I will need to remember that that's lowercase though. And now, if I want to just create more spikes, I can just make this a prefab and just drag and drop more of these. Oh, let's say there. I'm just going to flood this place with spikes. Let's put some side spikes here. That looks scary enough. Don't want to land here. Okay, let's add one more. Yeah, that looks pretty scary. And then let's add one here. Okay, now our map is more dangerous. Let's, well, I don't think anything's gonna happen so far. Yeah, we can just, stand on it. So we need to actually make it so that way the spikes do something, i.e. kill us. Well, more accurately, just reset the map. So I'm gonna open up our script we already made here. See, we added the spikes, now we need to just add deaths, and that's pretty simple to do. What we're going to need to do first is make sure we're using the scene management to add up here. So Unity engine dot scene management, and now I can, what am I doing? Okay, if on collision, right, okay. Brain fart, void. On collision enter, we've done this before. If the thing we're colliding with, aka the collision, if that, we need the game object, dot tag equals, remember this was lowercase, if it equals spike, what do I want to do? I want to go to the scene manager and load scene. What scene do I want to load? I could just type in the name itself, but instead what I can do to make this work on different levels, if there were multiple levels, which there's not, I can do scene manager dot get active scene. And what's really important here is to do dot name, oops, like that, then dot name. Because this function here wants a string for the scene name. Not, if you just did this function, it would return something, it would return the object and not the name itself. Okay, and I think that's pretty good. Let's see what happens. And I believe our build is already in the, our scene is already in the build index. Not like that. Is there a problem? Oh, they're untagged. Oh, I created the tag, but I didn't tag them. That's right. Okay, it's tag, spike, sorry about that. And now they should all have changed. Right, okay. So remember, just by changing the prefab, you can adjust every instance. Okay, that also didn't work. Why is that? Spike. Spike. Okay, I found the problem. And as you can see, we're working again. The problem was that I just did on collision enter collision instead of 2D. Very important distinction, apparently. No, yeah, so I'll get rid of these. These are just tests. Yeah, you know, I make mistakes sometimes, but we have fixed them. Okay, let's get back. So, as I just showed, it resets the scene when we touch the spikes. Let's see if I can, ooh, that was a good jump. See if I can actually beat this level. Okay, not that hard actually. Okay, what are we doing now? We have spikes. We can die via spikes, but I want to also die if we fall off the edge here. And so what I want to do first is actually pick a height that I want to die at. And I'm going to say, ooh, nope, let's see why I want to die right before the bottom of the map here goes out of my player's view. And so that'll be around 6.9. Okay, negative 6.9. I'll remember that. Let's say I'll add in a new serialized field here, and I'll call it, I'll make it float. I'll just call it death height. Death height. Okay, and now we want to do in update if at any point our transform dot position dot y is less than the death height, then simply all we want to do is reload the scene, aka die. And I said negative 6.9, so in our player we need to remember to go down here to death height and type in negative 6.9. Let's see if that works. Perfect. So now we die if we fall, and we die if we hit spikes. We can check that off the list. Oops. Change the background color, simple enough. All we do is, well, there's a few ways to do it actually, but the way we're going to do it, the simplest way, because I don't really like this dark blue here, we just go to the camera and then adjust the background. I think a color like this suits it pretty well. I like a green. Let's go to game view here. I think this would suit it pretty good. I don't want it to blend in with the grass, but I want it to complement it pretty well. Let's say right there. So that looks pretty good, I think. Yeah. And now let's, what do we want to do? Oh, I didn't add the cherry too, which is what we're gonna do. Add background color, we just did that. Ooh, this is one of my favorite parts of Unity actually, is adding particle systems. I'm not sure, I don't remember if we actually did this before, but we're gonna add a particle system now to give it the game a little bit more atmosphere. And to do that, we right click over here in the hierarchy and go to effects, particle system. I'm actually gonna anchor it to the player, and you'll see why in a minute. I'm gonna reset the transform. And you don't have to make yours exactly like the, in fact, well, you don't have to follow this tutorial, but if you are, feel free to adjust the particle system settings as much as you like. But I actually didn't write down how I did this before, so we're just gonna see if I remember. So let's go to renderer, let's change this to a mesh, change this to cube is actually fine, and that'll be good there. No, oh, size over lifetime, separate axes. I want my width to be much smaller because I want this to be like raindrops. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm gonna level this out here. Make this much smaller. Okay, that's pretty good. My color, I'll make it sort of a light blue, but I'll give it a little transparency. Duration, all that is fine. We do need to actually move it above the player, and you'll see why in a second. I keep saying that. I like lots of rain. Oh, it's not actually falling yet. That's important. The speed is very important. Let's say 20. Simulation space, a world, because rain should not follow the player. If our player moves, the rain should still fall straight down. Gravity is important, obviously. Let's say, that's a little harsh. I want it to be a light drizzle. Okay, our shape is important too. I want just a edge, a much bigger edge. How about there? And I could make it so it just covers the whole map, but it's good practice to not generate particles across the whole map, especially if they're not being rendered all the time. Okay, that should be pretty good. I'll start a little higher, and they're actually shooting upwards, which I don't like. Sort of takes away from the speed. So I'm going to rotate it along the z-axis, apparently. Okay, well, let's do 180 degrees. Okay, and that looks pretty good, except they're way too small still. So I will increase the size. Interesting. Oh, I know what's happening. Okay. On render, I forgot to change the material to just a blank white. Blank cube, I mean. Size over lifetime. I think I got my axes wrong. Oh, so I want it to always be a thick line. So I'm going to keep it at 1 there. Oops. Okay, these are way too big. Start size, again, go way down, and look at that. We have rain now. I'm not sure if it's enough rain, so I'm going to buff it up a little bit. Now let's see what that looks like. I like that, that's pretty good. Let's see what it looks like in full screen. I think that's pretty good. Proud of that. They're a bit thick though, so last change, I promise. So size over time, x-axis. I'll make it a flat line, drag it down even smaller. Okay, perfect. Now with our rain done, this game's already so much better. What do we have left? We just have to add the cherry, which I've been sort of teasing since the first episode of this series. What we do to add our cherry here, which will be sort of like our point system, I'll just, well, drag it in here, and I'll change it to just cherry. And let's see, how big is that in game? How big is this? It's actually a pretty good size. Maybe it could be a little bigger. And to do that, as you know, we go over here to our image, change our pixel. Well, I actually don't want to change that. I'll go up here and actually change the scale to maybe 2 times. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Some giant cherries. Okay. And what else do we want to do? We want to give it some functionality. So ideally, I want to collide with the cherry, increment our cherry count, and then have it disappear. But I also want it to do, I want to give it the functionality of being able to sort of move around into different paths. Okay, and to do that, there's actually several different ways you could do it, but this is the way I like to do it. I like to make child objects, just empties called maybe spot 1 and spot 2. Both of these are, transform has been reset, so it's just, the spots are just right in the middle here, and we're going to have to make a new script, but first let's add a little collider here. Circle collider should do for now. And yeah, add component. Let's add a new script, our last script of this series actually, and I'll call it just script called script_cherry. Now let's open it up, and what I want to do is be able to take these spots here, sort of move them into these different spots here, and have the cherry go back and forth between them. So if you wanted, you can just make it sort of oscillate up and down, if that's what you like. I'm going to have them sort of go back and forth over the level here, so that way you have to time your jumps to be able to collect the cherries. Okay, let's get to it. So let's open the script, and let's make a reference to, not a reference to the spot objects themselves, but the vector2, which represents the position they're in. So I'll just call it private vector2 position 1 and position 2. Okay, and like I said, there are different ways you can do this, but this way I find the most intuitive, so this is the way I'm going to teach it. And for the speed, you don't have to set it in here, but I know 1 is, actually, in fact I won't set it, but 0.1 to 0.5 is pretty good speed, I find. So what are we going to do? We're going to set these positions to equal the transform of our child objects. So the getChild function is under the transform component, which our cherry object here has. It'll look for getChild 0, index 0, and getChild index 1. So for position 1, we want to get child number 0. And then this is a vector 2, so it's dot position. And we'll do the same thing for position number 2, which will be get child number 1. And then that's it for the start. And now in update, we need to actually move the cherry, which is not that difficult. We'll do transform dot position equals vector 3. We can do vector 3. I think vector 2 would work, but I tested it with vector 3, and it works. So we will lerp, which is to just linearly interpolate, lerp, between 2 points, and those will be position 1 and position 2, and it asks for a time here. Now to actually go back and forth, what I'm going to use is the time dot time variable along with the math dot ping pong function, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So I'll just do mathf dot ping pong, and you can see the ping pong function, it linearly interpolates between, oh no, that's the lerp function, sorry. Ping pong returns a value that will increase and decrease between these two values, and I'm just going to do time dot time multiplied by our speed so that we can actually change it, and I'll just say 1. Okay, and that should be good there. Let's go ahead and test it out. Our speed, I think 0.5 should be good for now. Now let's actually give it some spots here. But before I customize that, I'm going to make this a prefab. I forgot the word. Okay, let's move these. So let's say I'll move the whole cherry probably right here, and I'll make spot 2, keep spot 1 where it is, and keep spot 2 right over here. And I'll make sure to just move it on one axis so that way it moves smoothly. Okay, let's try it. I think that's everything. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now it still doesn't get destroyed, so that's sort of a problem. We can actually write it, which is kind of cool. Okay. Now let's actually destroy this cherry. So we can do something similar in our player movement script. When we detect our spikes, we can detect, and I will need to add a new tag to our cherry. Detect if the tag is cherry, and we do not want to reload the scene. We want to, in fact, destroy the thing we collide with, which in this case is the cherry, dot game object. Because destroy only works with game objects. Okay. Now, before I forget, let's add in that cherry tag. Okay. Let's add it in for all the cherries. Okay. Should be good. Let's try it. Perfect. Awesome. Now, I forgot this when I did a test around here, but what we want to do is actually keep track of how many cherries we hit. Public, I'll just make it a serialized field for good practice. This is an integer, can't have half a cherry, at least in our game. I'll just call it cherry count. Yeah, oh, and when we collide with the cherry, destroy the cherry and increment our cherry count. Perfect. And I think all that's left to do is actually win the game, and our tutorial here will be over. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we need to detect, well, how to win. So in update, we're going to say if cherry count equals, let's say, 4. Let's say we're going to put 4 cherries in our game. Oops. Then, what do I want to do? I want to load the next scene, which I haven't created yet. And let's actually just type in its name. Let's call it win screen, or win scene. Should be good. Okay, so now we need to actually add in 4 cherries. And to do that, I'll just drag and drop in more of these in a good location. Let's say here. Here, and here. Yeah, here. And now let's move these down. You can also organize these spikes and the cherries if there's too many of them. You can add them into folders. But this cherry here, let's add its spot. Second spot maybe here. We'll make it go up and down. This cherry, let's make it go left and right. And then this cherry, we can make it go up and down as well. Let's test that out. I'm surprised I'm making that jump first try. Awesome. And, oh yeah, win scene cannot be loaded because we haven't made it yet. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll just make a new scene here, and I'll try to do this very quickly. I think we've done this before where we made at least a main menu, not really a win screen yet. But it was called win scene. Let's go ahead and, before I forget, add this to the build settings. Win scene. Okay. Let's go ahead and hop in here. I'll just change the background color real quick to something more you win. What's a color we all like looking at? Probably this looks pretty good. I like looking at that. I feel like this is a reward. Let's right click UI, add some text, legacy text. I'll call this you win text. Let's make the width something a bit more. I'll scroll out here. I'll make the width something, I'll put it right in the middle here. Something a bit more respectable, like maybe 600 by 100. Let's center it here. Oops. Click. Is that in the center? Yeah. Up the font. You win! Exclamation point 3 times. Let's center that. Change the color to white. That looks pretty good. And now, obviously, we need to add in a little picture here. Change the source image to a little happy dog. What's our size? 600 by 397. 600 by 397. Who doesn't like looking at that? Isn't that beautiful? Okay, it's just I googled happy dog. Okay, now let's go and earn this win. Okay. Did I save that? I think I did. Okay. Oh, I can actually jump that. That's pretty convenient. And I win. So that's going to be it for this tutorial, and next week, if you look at the syllabus, we're actually going to be moving on to, what is it? The plane simulator, right? And that's one of my favorite projects to work on. You guys are going to learn a lot. It's sort of like a plane in a 3D environment that you can zip around and fight other planes. It'll be pretty cool. Anyways, I hope you learned a lot throughout these last 3 videos, and if you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.